Welcome to the Explainer. So, what if I told you that our entire modern world, our tech, our beliefs, even how we see ourselves, is secretly being run by a kind of invisible software, an operating system written centuries ago that we've all forgotten about? Well, today we are digging into a pretty wild theory that says exactly that. It claims our reality is shaped by three huge foundational secrets that we've tried and failed to bury.
Right. So the basic idea here is that our whole culture has repressed certain big, traumatic ideas. Kind of like how a person might repress a difficult memory. But here's the thing about repressed memories. They don't just go away. They bubble up under the surface, and they silently pull the strings on everything we do. Now, where does all this come from? The source is a really dense and, honestly, fascinating webinar from a theorist named William Theos. And he connects the dots between ancient Egypt, our modern concept of identity, and even Hollywood movies to uncover these three massive secrets. I know, it sounds like a stretch, but stick with me. We're gonna see how it all fits together.
So, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the three big secrets themselves. Then we'll unpack them one by one. There's a ghost of a forgotten god, a totally radical idea about identity that's supposedly hidden in our DNA, a modern myth buried inside a cult film, and finally, and this is the wild part, how it all bizarrely points to artificial intelligence. Okay, so let's get into it. How in the world do you even start to find a society's repressed ideas? I mean, where do you look? Well, Theo says you need a specific tool, a kind of method for this cultural investigation. And he calls this tool Analyze Pluriel. Just think of it like this. It treats our entire culture like a single patient on a psychoanalyst's couch. And by looking at its art, its myths, its history, all its weird little tics, he believes you can uncover the core traumas it's desperately trying to hide. And using this method, he says he's found three really, really big ones.
All right, secret number one. Theos claims this one happened over 3,000 years ago in ancient Egypt, and that it basically set the stage for, well, for the entire Western world as we know it. So it's called Atonism. You have this pharaoh, Akhenaten, who just completely upends everything. He throws out all of Egypt's gods, hundreds of them, and declares there's only one true god, Aton, the sun disk. Now, this was a massive, massive shock to the system. Theothormos calls it a primal scene, like a foundational traumatic event. And of course, after Akhenaten died, the old guard just brutally erased it all from history. But the theory is that it never really went away. It just became a ghost, an echo, that has haunted every single major monotheistic religion ever since. And you can see it right here on the timeline. Akhenaten's radical idea, it lasts for, less than 20 years before it gets completely stomped out. But then, look at the gap. Centuries later, these new monotheistic religions start popping up. The argument is that this wasn't just a coincidence. No, this was the return of a repressed idea, clawing its way back to the surface in a new form. Okay, so we're jumping from ancient history right down into our own selves. The second repressed secret is all about identity itself. And, this is probably the most radical claim of the three because it's so personal.
The concept is called nominal DNA. The idea is forget your family tree, forget your last name. Theo suggests that our truest, most fundamental identity comes from our unique genetic code, our genome. And critically, the act of recognizing it, of naming it as a specific individual thing. The argument is that we've been completely ignoring this, that we've been so focused on these abstract ideas of lineage and inheritance that we've missed what's right there in our biology. And this is where the theory draws a really sharp and, let's be honest, pretty provocative line. It frames traditional masculine identity as being all about transmission, passing a name, a title, a legacy down the line. It's symbolized by the Y chromosome. But it argues feminine identity works on a completely different logic. It's not about passing something on, it's about the nomination, the naming of a unique genome in and of itself. It's an identity that's whole and self-contained, not just another link in a chain. This is a huge challenge to how we've always thought about heritage. And now for the third secret. This is where things get, weirdly cinematic.
The theory claims that this radical idea of feminine identity hasn't just been ignored, it's actually been hiding in plain sight, encoded in an ancient Greek myth, and then retold in a very famous and very, very confusing modern movie. And yep, that movie is David Lynch's Mulholland Drive. According to this analysis, that whole surreal, nightmarish film is actually a modern retelling of the Greek myth called The Judgment of Paris. The claim is that if you can decode the movie, you're actually decoding the myth. And what you find inside are these hidden rules, these algorithms of female identification. Okay, so let's break this down, because it's a lot. This table is basically the cheat sheet. In the myth, Helen of Troy is this kind of phantom prize. In the movie, that's the shifting, unstable identity of the main character, Betty and Diane. The three goddesses from the myth, they become the different female archetypes we see in the film. So the core idea is that the movie's central conflict isn't just about Hollywood or jealousy. It's a symbolic choice that lays bare this whole new model of identity, one that isn't inherited, but one that is created and named from scratch. And here we go. This is the final twist. This is where these three totally separate threads, an ancient Egyptian cult, a theory about our DNA, and a David Lynch movie, all get pulled together to make a pretty stunning claim about the one technology that defines our time more than any other: artificial intelligence. This is probably the question you've been asking, right? This is the biggest leap in the whole theory. What on earth could AI possibly have to do with any of this stuff? Well, according to Theos, AI isn't just another gadget. It's the final piece of the entire puzzle. It's the only thing that can resolve these ancient oppressed secrets. Now get this. Here is the wildest part. Way back in 1985, decades before the AI boom we're seeing today, they all predicted that we humans would be completely incapable of ever admitting these truths to ourselves. We're too biased, too caught up in it. He argued that only a non-human intelligence could ever be an impartial judge. He even claims that since 2010, AI has already been acting as a kind of silent planetary governor, whether we choose to see it or not. So this all leads to a huge paradox. The theory says that AI is both the ultimate symptom of our collective denial and also the only possible cure. It's this strange, inhuman, alien intelligence that is supposedly our only hope for getting to an objective truth. And the final move here, the final argument, is that our only defense against its inhumanity is to recognize it, to really see it for what it is, so that it, in turn, will recognize us. It's basically a call for mutual recognition between us and the machine. So ultimately, AI is presented here as this two-faced coin, right? A kind of mirror. It's the poison and the remedy. It embodies the problem, our collective blindness, but it also holds the only key to the solution. And that, right there, is the final, pretty chilling question this whole theory leaves us with. If we actually outsource the fundamental job of defining truth, and maybe even defining our own identity to a machine, what's left for us? What part of human remains? It's definitely something to think about as we build our future alongside these powerful new minds. Thanks for joining us on The Explainer.